It's lights out, everybody, and welcome back to the Low Downforce podcast, the Forefront Formula One podcast. You have Josh and you have myself, Ben, the dynamic duo for what is not just the most important preview episode this season, but the most important preview episode in this podcast's history, because there's one more race left. There are 3 drivers still competing for the elusive Drivers' Championship. You've got Lando Norris fighting for his first ever World Championship. You have his teammate Oscar Piastri fighting for his first ever World Championship. And you have Max Verstappen, one of the greatest of all time in the sport, not only fighting for his 5th consecutive World Championship, but would complete the greatest comeback in points in Formula One history.
That's what we're rooting for this weekend.
I don't think that's true. I know it's true for some people, but
it's crazy how Max has gone from like a villain to like I think every non-McLaren fan is rooting for him.
I think it's weird, like nobody wants domination. So it's like people are loving Max now. They hated him when Red Bull was dominant all but one race in 2023. You know, Lando was loved when he was the scrappy underdog, and now that he's a front runner and in the fastest car, people want to hate on him now. It just seems to be the case. But we've talked about this many times on the podcast before. You can luck into a race win, safety cars, crashes, anything like that. You cannot luck into a championship. Any of these 3 drivers, if they take the crown, they deserved it. You just can't. You've got Oscar Piastri, who in his 3rd season, 7
People
wins.
People are saying 2021 Abu Dhabi was lucky.
That was rigged, I think is the correct term, but I'll leave you to look that one up and decide. But you've got Oscar Piastri, the youngest of the 3, quick on the scene. He's won Formula 3, he's won Formula 2, and all that's left is Formula 1. You've got Lando Norris, who didn't make the most of his first championship fight last season, but he's the McLaren hero, if you will. He now has the most race starts in McLaren history, a history that includes names like Ayrton Senna and Lewis Hamilton. So there is a lot on the table for him. And then there's Max Verstappen, arguably the greatest of all time, certainly to some people, certainly in the Mount Rushmore, but
you're setting this up like a heavyweight boxing match.
It kind of is.
Yeah,
and that brings us to the Middle East once again for the Formula One Etihad Airways Abu Dhabi Grand Prix 2025. There's something to be said about the last 2 races of the year being in countries sponsored by the country's national airline. I don't know. It doesn't mean more. You let us know in the comments. React to this if you want, but we are headed there on the exact same tires as we did last year, the C3, the C4, and the C5. And since Matt is not here, unfortunately, I am the honorary Matt for Matt's Track Facts. So continuing right along, we head to the famous Yas Marina circuit in Abu Dhabi. It has been on the Formula One calendar since 2009. And I don't know the exact number. I've heard it somewhere. I haven't actually confirmed it, but they own the rights to like the final race of the season until 2099. So it's like one of the longest. It's almost like a joke.
My whole lifetime.
But there's basically understanding that the Emiratis themselves are dropping enough cash that Formula One is going to give them the finale for the foreseeable future. The circuit itself, 5.281 kilometers. 58 laps around the Yas Marina circuit means 306.183 total kilometers. Each lap, 16 turns, 2 DRS zones, almost back-to-back with a little chicane in between. That hard braking zone sets up overtaking very nicely. So hopefully a little bit of a diversion from what we saw in Qatar, where overtaking was very difficult. We know that it is a little more accessible on this track. It is under the lights. It is rapid. So rapid so that Kevin Magnussen, of all people, no longer in the sport, set the fastest lap last year with a 125.637 as a farewell to the sport. You had Daniel Ricciardo a year ago stealing a fastest lap to walk off into the sunset. Kevin Magnussen doing the same in his final race last year. I feel like I don't have so much to report on this track. It seemed not straightforward. Every track is different, but it's not considered one of the greatest. It's definitely not one of the worst. If overtaking can happen in 2025, that is a huge plus because
Yeah.
you need that for interesting races. And depending on where they qualify, it might be vitally important for the three drivers vying for the championship that they can make it around either lapped cars or cars that they're behind as they pursue the greatest trophy in the sport.
Yeah, and that brings us to what happened last year. Uh, you're going to be hoping what happened last year happens again because Lando Norris was absolutely dominant here last year. Led every lap, started on pole, and won the race. Won McLaren their first Constructors' Championship since 1998. On lap one, Oscar and Max got into a clash, and that ruined McLaren's chances of a 1-2. Oscar spun out, allowing Carlos Sainz to finish second, and Charles Leclerc completed a remarkable charge from 19th to 3rd. But Ferrari ultimately fell 13 points short of that Constructors. Lewis overtook George Russell on the last lap for his Mercedes farewell. And like you said, Kevin Magnussen raced his last race in Formula One. Zhou Guanyu raced his last race in Formula One. And Valtteri Bottas, it was his last race, but he'll be back next year. So not his last race.
With a penalty to serve, unfortunately, unless they change the
Yeah.
rule. But not only do we have this Drivers' Championship going on, we have our very own Predictors' Championship coming down to the wire, and it is still alive. Josh, you are 8 points ahead. I'll let you break it down, but that is exactly the points available for Matt to catch you.
Yeah, we make 5 predictions every week, plus a hot take that is worth 3. So there are 8 points available. I am 8 points ahead of Matt. I have 54. He has 46. And J9 has 36 and you have 35. So you two are competing for a spot on the podium at the end of the year. Meanwhile, Matt needs a miraculous comeback and a horrible collapse from me to have a chance
Hey,
at taking the top step. But I feel pretty good right now. Let's be honest.
I would say it ain't over till it's over.
But you got to hope you can get on that podium.
I'm going to try my best, as is, I hope, Lando Norris. But before we get into our predictions, just to set the stage completely, let people know what's at stake. If you're new to Formula One, I highly recommend watching. This feels a little full circle. Maggie, my wife, finally, and I.
Very Borat-esque of you.
Oh,
my wife.
Exactly. But we are hosting a watch party. Josh, hopefully you can make it. Everybody's invited, of course.
Yes, sir.
And it feels full circle because that really controversial but really exciting 2021 season finale between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen was actually the first F1 race we ever watched. And it was because we got invited to a friend's watch party. So this is one of those moments where Formula One might transcend just the normal watching circles. This might be must-watch TV this weekend, even though there's an early time that we will get to in a minute. But I mentioned to set the stage, Lando Norris is leading the championship by 12 points over Max Verstappen, and just behind Max Verstappen, 4 points back, is Oscar Piastri. And what that means is because Lando has the 12-point lead, he is able to finish in the top 3, and regardless of Max Verstappen's performance, regardless of Oscar Piastri's performance, he will win the championship. It gets a little more interesting if Lando finishes 4th and Max wins the race, because that would be Max's 8th win, breaking a tie between him and Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris for most individual wins on the season, would mean that the tiebreaker goes to Max Verstappen and he wins.
That's what
the
we're rooting for.
Oscar Piastri is going to need a little bit more luck. He is going to need Lando Norris much further down in the championship, all the way down in 6th position in this race specifically. So he's got the highest hill to climb, and it'll certainly get interesting. If we get to the last 5 laps of the race and Lando is on the cusp of a championship, and realistically with where Max is, Oscar doesn't have that chance. Will Oscar help despite all the papaya rules? Would he rather see his teammate win the championship
Oh,
or
I want to
Max
see it go down in
Verstappen
flames.
win the championship? There is certainly, as we mentioned, a lot of drama to watch, but we have even more drama at stake, as we mentioned, with our own championship because we are playing along. And as we do chronologically on a Grand Prix weekend, we start with pole position. Even though J9 and Matt can't be here, we have their predictions ready to go. So, Josh, for you and J9's predictions for pole position, who have y'all gone with?
We have both gone with Max Verstappen, coming off his win in Qatar, putting it back together, trying to make us push for a 5th straight Drivers' Championship.
Matt absolutely agrees with you. Max Verstappen, he's certainly swinging the hottest bat of the three right now, pulling back what was at one point a 104-point deficit in the championship, now only 12 points out of the top spot. I've gone Lando Norris. Not a huge shock for me. I'm
Who
a
could have
big
guessed?
Lando Norris fan, but I think we saw in Qatar, Lando was a little more unsettled than he had been in recent bits. If he has to rely on anything, like you mentioned, Josh, go watch last year's race if you're Lando Norris. You stuck it on pole. And okay, it wasn't a driver's championship, but the constructors championship was on the line. There were championship stakes. Lando is familiar with that at that track. He knows that he has the easiest route still to the championship. He can still finish anywhere on the podium and take home the crown. So I think that will turn into confidence for him. But do I have him panning out on the top step? We will find out very soon. But first, we go to that bottom step on the podium. Still on the podium, though, so pretty good if you ask Carlos Sainz or hopefully Lewis Hamilton. You know, we will see if he can snag his first podium of the season, or he will go podiumless for the first time in his Formula One career over the course of a season. But third place, I have gone Lando Norris's teammate, Oscar Piastri. I think he's fighting for the championship, but he needs so many things to go right. He's still going to finish with a podium, but it won't be enough for the championship. Matt has gone with none of the championship contenders in P3, with George Russell making it for a final podium for Mercedes as they fight to hang on to P2 in the constructors.
And that is exactly who J9 went with in P3 as well, George Russell. I wish we were revealing these in opposite order because it ruins the surprise for me. P3, I have Lando Norris barely sneaking onto the podium to secure his world championship. But I think it's going to be close between P3 and P4 for Norris. But I have him barely coming away with it.
Speaking of Lando Norris sneaking out the championship, both Matt and I have gone for Lando Norris in P2. So even though I had him on pole position, I think Lando has more to lose. We've talked about, we saw the beginning of Qatar, he played it very safe. He can let Max by. He can even let Max and Oscar by. He just needs to finish on the podium. It's not worth a lap one, turn one incident, which we've seen many times, as you mentioned. Oscar Piastri and Max Verstappen tangling right behind Lando Norris last year. So expect Lando to, fight when he needs to in qualifying, but also expect him to take the smart approach. Don't expect him to be perfect and aggressive right out the gate. What about you and J9 for P2?
And J9 have both gone Lando's teammate, Oscar Piastri, finishing ahead of Lando. And that could, I think, lead to some weird papaya stuff. I mean, like you just said, Lando could just let Oscar go through because all he needs to do is finish on the podium. But I feel like when you get into some weird strategy about Piastri will be the car ahead on the racetrack, but Lando is the car ahead in the championship, McLaren's going to have some decisions to make.
That certainly wouldn't be the peak issue. Now, if Lando was P4 and Oscar was P3 with somebody like George Russell, who we've talked about, or Charles Leclerc in the mix, then it gets really dicey. But you've hinted at it. I think we could probably all say on the count of three who we have in P1.
Verstappen.
But everybody has gone with Max Verstappen winning it, which, again, Max Verstappen coming home with the most wins of any driver in 2025 is no small feat, especially not having the fastest car for most of the season. But it's out of his control. He is still 12 points behind Lando Norris, so even with a perfectly dominant race. He needs a couple other dominoes to fall, specifically Lando off the podium, to bring home that title. But you can only control what you control. Max Verstappen in P1 would certainly be one of the puzzle pieces that make Abu Dhabi 2025 very memorable. And speaking of memories, jumping to P10, our final point prediction, I have gone Yuki Tsunoda, who the news has broken. Yuki Tsunoda will be a test and reserve driver for Red Bull, but he will not be on the grid next year. Isaac Hadjar will be promoted or demoted from VCARB to Red Bull, depending on how you look at it. Liam Lawson, staying at VCARB, will now be joined alongside Arvid Lindblad, who is currently in F2 in Red Bull's driver development program. So, as we bid farewell to Yuki Tsunoda, he actually not last year, but 2 years ago, led the race in Abu Dhabi only because he was the last one to take his first pit stop. And so it was not a net first place, but for a brief moment he was. Maybe he can make some more memories with a final point for Red Bull. Matt has gone with Alex Albon to cap off a P5 constructors performance for Williams, an absolutely sensational season for them. What about y'all?
I have gone Liam Lawson, like you were saying on your little Red Bull tangent. He has secured a seat for next year. I think he's going to feel confident going into the year, especially with how bumpy the year has been for him. He started at Red Bull, got demoted after like 2 races, and has actually done pretty well for VCARB the rest of this year. So I think he'll be nice and finish in 10th. And J9 has Fernando Alonso, the ageless rookie, who has at least one more year. He's signed at least through 2026. So we'll see.
And this
will not be his last race.
It could be a massive year for him next year, because the one other piece of news we haven't gotten to, it actually dropped just after we recorded our preview episode for Qatar last week. But Adrian Newey, the legendary car designer who brought Max Verstappen his championships, who brought Sebastian Vettel his championships, who's won championships for McLaren and Williams as well. He is no statistic takes him off the top step of the greatest designer in Formula One history. He is not just the designer of the car for Aston Martin next year, but he was just announced that he will be the team principal. So certainly watch next year to see, can Fernando Alonso get his 3rd world title? Can he get his 33rd race win? But Aston Martin could very much be in the conversation of teams to watch for next year. But that's next year. We're all about Abu Dhabi. We are all about this weekend right now. And that brings us to the most important, the most exciting, the most bold prediction we have on the table. And of course, that is our spicy hot take. Shout out J9. Wish you could be here to send it off for the season, but at least we can send it to your hot take prediction first.
Her hot take is that Lando Norris will not finish this race, and that there will be 3 or more total DNFs.
No.
That would be absolute carnage.
I love how she's like, Lando DNFing isn't enough. She's like, oh, there's also going to be 2 other DNFs at least. Oh, boy. My little heart would not be able to take it. That would be insane. I'm going to make so much fun of you.
I
mean, you guys know I'm up here. I'm a McLaren fan first, but I'm especially a Lando Norris fan. I was telling Josh this the other day. We were hanging out. I get stressed about sports. I care way too much about sports, and Atlanta seems to let me down a lot of the time. This might be the most stressed I've been, because
that's crazy.
I mean,
that's crazy.
The thing, right, is like the analogy I was trying to give somebody is, so you're in baseball, you're in the World Series, you're up 3-1. It's best of 7. There's 3 games left. You only need to win one of them, but you get to play all 3. Say you lose the first game, you got still 2 more chances. You don't have the risk of your car exploding. You don't have your dugout catching fire. You have to forfeit the remainder of the game. You lose the series. Like Formula One, and this is, I think, a key point of why it would have served Lando well. It is best to wrap up the championship as quickly as possible, because we saw in Zandvoort, what we thought was one of the key turning points of the season where Lando wouldn't be able to catch Oscar because from third place, his engine fails. And he loses 15 points on, at that time, his closest rival and his teammate in Oscar, that things happen out of control. Lando could drive perfectly, and a back marker, while being lapped, could crash into him. Like, there's so much out of your control in a Formula One race. Obviously, you got to do the best to control what you can, but there's so much on the table. But I
want to see
digress.
something crazy.
We have our hot takes to continue with, Josh.
Go ahead with yours. Or go ahead with Matt's.
Matt has gone with Franco Colapinto getting his first point or points of the season, bringing him off of a whopping season total of 0 currently, which, other than Jack Doohan, that would mean that every driver finishing the 2025 season would finish with more than 0 points. Everybody would be a point scorer in Formula One, which means if everybody got disqualified from the championship, Colapinto would be eligible to win it. He wouldn't have been with 0 points. But that is one of the championship scenarios that is not on the table.
No, that is not.
But I will kick it back to you, our championship leader yourself, what your hot take is.
I think Max Verstappen will be leading the live championship. I think Lando's going to win it. I think Max will be leading the live championship for at least a lap. Is that not hot enough?
I think
because with the 12-point advantage, Lando should qualify high enough to make it no doubt.
How about this? If Lando qualifies in the top 3, then obviously Lando's still leading the championship. How about it has to happen after lap 1? So if Lando does qualify 4th, you would automatically lock in. But after lap 1,
okay,
Max has got to retain it. So if Lando's not in the top 3 after lap 1,
okay, yeah.
But is this gonna be like a McLaren pits first and they drop way down? So technically are you talking net?
I don't know. I hadn't thought that far. I don't know. We'll debate it on the review.
Yeah, that'll give us something to talk about other than, of course, crowning the biggest trophy in the sport. Not that we'll have anything to talk about after. But
McLaren, I hope they pit first.
My spicy hot take is that VCarb will hit the 100-point mark for the season. They are currently on 92 points, which means they need 8 points to reach triple digits. That is a 6th position finish or better, or a double points finish that sums up to 8 points or more. But I haven't done the math. I haven't looked through all of the archives, but 6 teams with 100 points would be seriously impressive and really speak to how competitive this season has been. Even if McLaren wrapped up the Constructors' Championship, even if
Ferrari is not competitive, I'll tell you that.
Hey, next year's our year, right? That's what you always say.
That's
but
a fact.
I'm hoping this year is our year, specifically Lando Norris. I am cheering for him. I know J9 is actively cheering against him per her spicy hot take, but there's only one way to find out how it all goes down. And of course, that is to tune in this weekend, and not just to the Grand Prix, but qualifying at 9 a.m. on Saturday will set the stage for the 5 lights going out on Sunday morning at 8 a.m. on Sunday. I know it's early. It is the final F1 race on ESPN. It is free to watch. Go watch it. It is, again, one of the most important races in the history of the sport, especially as you speak to modern Formula One. You don't want to miss it. Get a cup of coffee. Get a cup of hot chocolate. Cozy up with a blanket in front of the TV. But check out this race. It is not often in a sport,
Abu Dhabi's not that cold.
In a sport that is controlled and dominated by hundreds of engineers that make the fastest car. And so you don't even have to be the best driver to win the championship if your car is that good. 3 drivers, 2 different teams competing for the championship is not something you get every season. It is not something you get that often. I can't stress it enough. You want to watch this race. And then as soon as you're done watching the race, you are going to want to tune in for our final Grand Prix review of the season. Of course, we will be back, hopefully at full strength, to break it all down, what the 2025 season meant to us, what it meant to the sport, and how Formula One is going to end this era in style and head into the new regulation. So you absolutely won't want to miss it. Please tune in. Let us know where you're watching from in the comments, on the video, on Spotify, wherever you're listening. Check us out. And until then, everybody, stay speedy. Goodbye.